Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Access Asia. Coming up, India claims to have flushed its open defecation problem down the toilet, but experts say there's still a long way to go. And a Thai girl has been compared to her idol, Greta Thunberg. We'll take a look at how 12-year-old Lilly is fighting to save the planet. And matcha may be centuries old, but it is the craze today. The superfood not only tasty and healthy, but it could save Japan's ailing green tea industry. 5 years ago, India launched a campaign to eliminate public defecation by 2019, a problem that creates health and safety risk for the country's most poor. Prime Minister Narendra Modi claims 110 million new toilets have been built, but experts say the statistics are misleading. Nick Rushworth has more.
Take Your Poo to the Loo, a UNICEF campaign video calling on Indians to take the pledge and stop defecating outdoors. Use a toilet instead. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says it is mission accomplished. Campaigns against open defecation over the last 5 years have worked.
In 60 months, we have provided toilets to more than 600 million people. More than 110 million toilets have been built.
Modi promised latrines for all in 2014 when he was first elected. But critics say he's fallen short. New toilet facilities are not always used. This toilet building in one part of New Delhi is closed. Locals say it is not connected to water.
We felt so good that a toilet was being built. Toilets are being built, sure, but they're all shut. None are functional.
Many poor people still lack immediate access to toilet facilities. This woman and her family in New Delhi have to make a 10-minute trek to a pay toilet. That is if they have the money. Otherwise, they go to an open defecation area called the jungle.
We do feel ashamed when we go to the jungle, but we're helpless in such a situation. We can't stop ourselves. Yes, there are males looking at us, and yes, we do feel ashamed.
Women remain at danger, even though Modi says they no longer have to wait for darkness to descend.
There is no toilet where we live. We all go out to the open to defecate. It's a big problem. It's been a problem for years, almost 30 to 40 years.
There has been progress. Latrine ownership went up from 35% to 70%. However, experts argue it's time to move away from a target-driven approach and concentrate instead on changing behavior for a permanent solution.
Well, Swedish teenager Greta Thunberg has inspired students around the world to call on leaders to do more to fight climate change. In Thailand, she's had a major influence on a 12-year-old girl named Lilly. Now, every Friday, instead of going to class, Lilly paddles down a dirty Bangkok canal, fishing out rubbish and plastic bags.
This artificial island south of Bangkok has long been known as the city's green lung. But like much of Thailand, it's begun to suffocate under plastic. At just 12 years old, Lilly is leading the fight to clean up the city, inspired by young Swedish climate activists Greta Thunberg.
Greta is really important to me because what she symbolizes. She says that kids can make a difference. She wants everybody to do something, and she got so many people together.
Plastic has become part of daily life in Thailand, with the country using around 500 million plastic bags each day. A majority are discarded in nature, making Thailand the world's 6th biggest contributor to ocean plastic pollution. To combat this epidemic, Lilly has taken her message to the top. She's led several sit-ins, met with local business leaders, and much like her idol Greta Thunberg, she recently spoke at a United Nations conference.
I'm trying to enforce a lesson onto the Ministry of Education, a lesson about the environment.
When she's not picking up trash in parks and forests, Lilly helps clean up the city's canals and hopes to inspire others to do the same. But Lilly's efforts may have already begun to bear fruit. Earlier this year, Thailand's prime minister vowed to ban all single-use plastics, including bags, straws and cups, by 2022. A promise which environmental activists are now hoping will soon be signed into law.
Well, with pro-democracy protests continuing in Hong Kong, the movement partially stole attention from China's National Day. October 4th marked 70 years of its communist system, but the country is home to sites far, far older, many of which have become incredibly popular with tourists. However, mass tourism is posing a threat to the sites themselves. Luke Trego has more.
Tucked away literally in northeastern China's Hengshan Mountain, an architectural marvel dating back to the Wei Dynasty over 1,500 years ago. The Hanging Temple, dedicated to Buddhism, Taoism and Confucianism, 75 meters off the ground and built into the cliff face itself.
By its appearance, you'd think it's supported by the exterior columns, but in fact it's the beams, which are buried deep inside the rock. Because it's set into the mountain, the rain can't reach it, and that protects it from water damage, and the mountain opposite protects it from the sun.
However, the temple's become a victim of its own success and now faces a more modern threat to its survival: mass tourism.
I heard that it's about 2 hours.
The sheer amount of foot traffic hasn't been good for the wooden structures. Only 2 years ago, access wasn't limited, with the complex sometimes seeing up to 20,000 people a day and leaving it in danger of collapse. Things had to change.
There aren't too many people in the temple. The queue at the bottom is long. Let about 20 people up.
Now the limit's 150 people at a time, and there's no stopping to linger, with monitors keeping an eye on proceedings. One of the guides at the temple has been there long enough to see how things have changed over the years.
Electricity use was stopped 20 years ago to protect the temple. Even the monks had to leave.
It all comes down to increasing awareness in China of the value of its architectural and cultural heritage.
The government's doing more and more to protect the site. Last year, they carried out restoration efforts.
For now, the Hanging Temple has a new lease on life, better protected from the ravages of time and man.
Matcha has been touted as a superfood due to its being rich in antioxidants. It could also be a gold mine, as the demand for traditional green tea is on the decline in Japan. Some businesses are hoping to offset the losses by capitalizing on growing global demand for matcha. Anka Ula has a story.
This ancient, bright green powder has been used in tea ceremonies for centuries. It's called matcha, a finely ground Japanese green tea powder. Unlike traditional sencha green tea, matcha leaves are grown in the shade and harvested without their stems or veins. These days, matcha has become a global phenomenon. It comes in many forms: chocolates, breads, ice creams, and it could be the saving grace Japan's tea industry has been praying for. Japan, it turns out, has a drinking problem. From 2001 to 2015, Japanese consumption of green tea leaves for drinking has dropped nearly 30%. Many point to westernized eating habits as the root of the problem.
Bread and noodles have gained some ground in eating habits, relatively reducing the consumption of rice and tea. Unlike in the past, there are fewer Japanese people who drink tea all the time.
Wholesaler Shigehiko Suzuki made the shift from traditional green tea to matcha 20 years ago, and he's benefited from the tea's rising popularity. His company now exports 30 tons of green tea each year to the US, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Many Japanese producers have also started growing matcha, which sells for almost twice the price of traditional sencha green tea, and is easier to produce.
Traditional sencha tea requires a long process involving several machines, whereas the production of matcha is more straightforward.
With increasing competition from overseas, Japan is trying to revamp the image of green tea at home. Trendy tea bars have been popping up across major cities, like this minimalist bar called Tokyo Sario.
It's important to imagine new ways of presenting tea to allow people to rediscover its value.
Here, customers have the choice between 42 varieties of leaves. The goal? To usher in a new generation of tea drinkers and challenge the millennial belief that green tea is a pastime reserved for their grandparents.
Now, every year, October 4th marks the Catholic feast of St. Francis of Assisi, but it also marks World Animal Day, so the faithful in Philippines have combined the two. So a priest held a special mass for dogs, cats, and even squirrels. More than 100 pet owners and their furry and fluffy companions were in attendance. Asked while she was there, one woman said her cat was like her own son. Well, that's it for this edition of Access Asia. Thanks for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.